Yo, what's good, everybody? And thank you for tuning in into another episode of Back Down Memory Lane, where I will be highlighting the magnificent film Brown Sugar. If this is your first time coming to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning family member, then you already know what it is and what it always will be. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, tell somebody to tell somebody. You feel me? All that good stuff. But if you choose not to, just sit back, relax, and we're going to get right into this thing. Now, Brown Sugar premiered October the 11th, 2002. Can y'all believe it's been that long? It has. It was written by Michael Elliott and Rick Famuyiwa. Brother, if I mispronounce your name, I am so sorry. Judge my mind and not my heart, because I tried. The synopsis for this movie is lifelong friends A&R Andre and editor-in-chief Sydney attributes their friendship and the launch of their careers to a single seminal childhood moment, the day they discovered hip-hop on a New York street corner. Now, some 15 years later, as they lay down tracks toward their futures, hip-hop isn't the only thing that keeps them coming back to that moment on the corner. Now, Brown Sugar came out when I was in high school, and I remember going to see it with a few friends at the theater, and I thought it was such a great film. And watching the movie as an adult, I still feel the same way, even though there are some moments that I wanted to pop Sydney and Dre in their throats. But we gonna get to that a little later. One of the things that I adore most about this film is that hip hop and love were the harmonies that were being echoed throughout. And because I am a music nerd, or a music enthusiast. I like that better. Because I am a music enthusiast, let me go into a little detail about what I mean. A harmony is when we hear two or more notes simultaneously. And throughout Brown Sugar, we hear and see love and hip hop in such an authentic way. It forms to create a beautiful story that is messy, that can sometimes skip, that sometimes you got to rewind, just like it would be if you were listening to one of your favorite songs. I got to give a shout out to Sanaa Lathan and Taye Diggs, because they did what they were supposed to do in this film. All right. Now, we know that they played in The Best Man Together as well. I do enjoy their chemistry because I feel like they have great chemistry, but I don't feel like their chemistry is like off the charts. Like with Love Jones, I think Neil Long and Lorenz Tate's chemistry is, damn it, in outer space. It's that good. And even though Taye and Sanaa have great chemistry, it's not to the point where it's like, wow, these two are just like crazy in tune with each other. I don't get that from them, but they definitely gave what they were supposed to give. Now, with me personally, I connected with this film so much because growing up, my best friend was a guy, and we met around the same time. I think we were 10 years old, and we definitely pondered the should we, shouldn't we? Is it worth forfeiting our friendship if we were to see if we could be more than friends? And, you always got to think about that if it ends badly, because a lot of people, hype themselves up to believe, well, even if it ends badly, we still have our friendship. Yeah, that sounds good until you actually get into the situation and you realize that, one of y'all hurt the other one a little too badly and you can't recoup and you can't reconcile. And now you have destroyed a friendship that meant a lot to you. So I think after we considered and weighed the options, we decided that friends we shall be. And friends we shall remain. Now, there were dates here and there and, holding hands, but nothing serious. And let me say this too, just in case somebody stumbled along this video and you have not watched this movie, I need you to go do that ASAP. And just like I did with Love Jones, this review is not going to go in a linear motion, meaning that it would not be done in chronological order. I am not going scene by scene. However, it will give what it's supposed to. So getting into this thing. Starting off like I will do all the back down memory lanes review, I'm going to start with what is my favorite scene of this movie. And I have two. I have two that live in my mind and heart rent free. And this is the first one.
Trying to order the most expensive bottle of champagne because we finna celebrate. Dre. We gonna celebrate what? My divorce. How about that?
Now this scene this scene is so funny to me for several reasons, but I'm gonna keep it cute because I'm not gonna get in too much detail with this scene because I'm gonna come back to it. But for the most part, Reese is out on a date with a dude with a little cutie from the gym who has a little thing for her. Now, he doesn't know that she's married. Reese is not wearing her wedding ring, so how would he know? Sydney and Dre ends up at the restaurant because Reese and Dre have a tendency to take each other's phone by accident because they have the same phone. So in this case, Dre had her phone. He gets the alert about this date. So he goes there along with Sydney. Sydney is embarrassed as hell, and she's sitting there looking like, how the hell did I end up here? Well, sis, you know how you end up there. We know how you ended up there, but we're not going to talk about that right now. I'm going to pause, and we're going to come back because I'm going to dig in both of their asses a little later. And this is my second favorite scene of the movie.
You are the perfect verse over a tight beat.
Now, this is a public service announcement. If someone says this to your man or your woman, just bow out gracefully. I urge you, just bow out gracefully because you are not the chosen one. You're just not. You're not the chosen one. Don't roll the dice. Do not pass go. And do not collect the $200 because their heart is not with you. Deal with that fact and skip the hell along. Okay? I don't know how you come back from that. That's, to me, and this is just me, that's one of the hardest lines that I have ever heard in a movie. It's that good. It's that deep. And it's that crucial. You are the perfect verse over a tight beat. Anybody who is a lover of music, as I am, it don't get much better than that. You are the perfect verse. Oh, I can go on with that for days, and I'm going to leave it alone because what is there to say after somebody makes that type of declaration? There is nothing to say. So as I stated, how if you ever hear this, just know that your man or your woman's heart is not with you. And speaking of hearts, when we go to the beginning of the film, Sydney is asking her $1 million question. It's the question that she asks every hip hop artist that she interviews. And the question is, when did you fall in love with hip hop? We see many hip hop artists telling their stories of when they first fell in love with the music and the culture and the lifestyle of hip hop, which leads to Sydney answering her own question. And we find out that she fell in love with hip hop when she saw Slick Rick, Dana Dane, and Dougie Fresh battling in the Bronx. And who was next to her? No one but Dre. Now, fast forward, we are taken to Sydney, who is in her office, and we find out that she's writing a book. And there is a going away party happening for her, which she's not partaking. She is not enjoying the festivities. So she gets a phone call from Dre, who works for Millennium Records. And we find out a few things in the midst of this conversation. Sydney was the hip hop writer for the Los Angeles Times, which is a big deal. She is now the new editor for Double XL magazine. And I got to pause there. Now, I know Double XL magazine still exists and it still comes out like with their freshman class with the new founded, rappers of today or whatever. But back in the day, Double XL was such a huge magazine for hip hop culture. It was a privilege to be on the cover. It was a privilege to be considered, a part of the freshman class. It was a huge thing and it was such a culture shifter. But now I can't really speak on it because I don't follow the magazine like that anymore. Because even though I am a hip hop fan, I don't really rock with the new rap artist. Okay, and I'm calling them rap artists for a reason. I don't really rock with them. However, I do love my authentic hip hop artists. And even though I do understand that the culture and the music, it does evolve, and I am a firm believer of that, and I respect that. However, I just believe that there are some people who are inside the culture who are just trying to make a quick buck, and they really don't have a generalized respect for the importance of the specific genre of hip hop. That's just me, but I'm not here to give my thesis on or a dissertation on hip hop or the artist or any of the sort. So I'm going to keep it moving along. And so we find out that for her to be the editor or this new job, she has to relocate back to New York, where Dre is, and who is incredibly excited for his best friend to return back to New York, where they both fell in love with hip hop. So we see Sydney. She goes to a Def Jam party being thrown by the extremely problematic Russell Simmons. I'm not going to get into that. This is for the movie, so I'm going to keep it moving. And so we're introduced to a new character, which is Francine, Sydney's cousin, who is played by the beautiful and incredibly talented Queen Latifah. UNITY. You feel me? A true hip hop artist. But as they're walking through this party, we are seeing all the famous entertainers, not all of them, but many of them from, the 1990s, early 2000s, whatever. And these two looking elf list rappers attempt to get Sydney's and Francine's attention. And Sydney busts out laughing, and she's not the least bit impressed. And she states that that's the reason why she doesn't date within the business, because the men, they never have their stuff together. And so Francine sees Dre and says, what, like him? And Sydney smiles as she sees her best friend. I said, look at this. So you automatically know that there is something a little deeper than just friendship as it pertains to Sydney and Dre. You just know something else is on the horizon. There is something else that's underlying, and I was just waiting to see when it was going to come to the surface. So Sydney is at the bar, and we know that there is such a familiarity with Sydney and Dre because they order each other's drinks, their favorite drinks, and they embrace each other. They give each other a hug, and it was evident that they probably had not seen each other for a while, being that they live on separate coasts. This is where we meet another character by the name of Reese, played by the beautiful Nicole Ari Parker. And she plays Dre's girlfriend at the time. And so she's so excited to meet Sydney because, of course, she's heard all these things about her. She knows how close she and Dre is. She knows that Sydney is Dre's best friend. But it was evident that Sydney didn't know who the hell this woman was. She believed that this was just another random that Dre deals with until Dre shows her the engagement ring. And I'm looking at Sydney's face like, baby girl don't like this. She don't like this one bit. And then she tells Dre, like, you've only known her like for 5 minutes. Why are you doing this? And he was like, yeah, I know, but I think she the one. Now, let me tell y'all how I knew this farce of a marriage was destined for doom from the very beginning. Because, sir, why are you proposing to this woman at a Def Jam party? Now, don't get me wrong. I know when the inspiration hits, you want to be in the moment. But I was like, you could not propose to this woman at a better location? For real? A Russell Simmons party? A Def Jam party, Dre? And you didn't even get on your knees. I'm not saying you got to. But my God. Really? You could have did better than that, Dre. Now, Tay Diggs looked sexy as hell in this movie. God, okay, that it's not even about that. But I just, as I'm thinking about the scene in my head, I was like, Tay Diggs was he was truly a chocolate delight. I'm just keep it at that. I'm gonna come back to that in a minute, but I just had to say that. So Sydney looked somewhat genuinely happy when Reese accepted Dre's proposal, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, sis, you not happy. And y'all finna be messy as hell. And I remember being in the theater thinking like, oh, hell. So they in love with each other and you about to marry. And I said, well, maybe he's not going to actually marry this chick, even though he proposed to her. But God said, just keep on watching, my child. Keep on watching. So we see Francine and Sydney. Sydney has been back in New York for a month and she has not unpacked, unboxed. She's not settled in at all. I said, ooh, that's probably going to be me because I'm moving in a couple months. That's probably going to be my life where I've been at my place for a month and I still got stuff in boxes. Don't judge. Don't judge me. So Francine comes across what Sydney calls a massager. But we know, oh, it's massaging something. It's getting the job done. And Sydney basically tells her that she doesn't have time for a man. She ain't got time for all that. You know what I'm saying? She needs something when she needs something, and her toy gets the job done. Francine, you could tell from the very beginning, is truly a supporter of Sydney and Dre. Because she asked, you never thought about hooking up with Dre? Like, what's up with that? And so Sydney tells her that, when she was at Columbia, Dre did pose the question of, did she ever think that they should try to be more than friends? And Sydney told him no. I would have loved for the writers to go more into detail, because why did she say no? Where did the no come from? I know she did mention about, ruining the friendships and when things don't work out. And she brought up Francine's, ex-husband, like they were friends at one point. Now they barely talk. And Francine was like, we talk about alimony. We talk about that tramp he dealing with. And Sydney was like, exactly. And basically she just didn't want that to happen between her and Dre. Now Sydney was invited to Reese's bridal tea shower party thingamajig. And she had not brought a present or a gift to take. Francine tells her, I got you, cuz. I got you. So Sydney was excited because, okay, my cousin got me. Now, this party was furthermore proved how much Dre and Sydney just need to stop playing the games and get together. So they had little cute games or whatever, like get to know Dre, fun facts about Dre. Sydney was answering every question so fast. She didn't give anybody opportunity to answer because nobody knew, not even Reese. And I thought about this for a moment because I'm like, what happens when you have a best friend of the opposite sex who you are attracted to, who is now in a relationship, and you secretly have these underlying feelings? How do you downplay that? Like, I think there's a difference in between thinking like your friend is cute or attractive, but when you're sexually attracted to your friend and you have feelings for your friend, how do you maneuver around them and the person that they're with? That has to be very uncomfortable. I'm just glad I ain't never have to deal with that. But I'm going to give y'all some more personal anecdotes as I push this story along. Long story short, Francine needs her ass beat. Francine gives some skimpy behind draws to Reese as a gift from Sid. Of course, she was embarrassed. It was like a whip. It was some panties. Now, they all joked about it and made light of it. But I was like, Francine, that was hella embarrassing. And of course, Sydney was embarrassed. So she met with Dre to tell him about the experience. And they just kind of hung out. They was at the park eating hot dogs, talking about, him talking about, the women that he deal with, the video girls versus the Cinderlapa honeys. And, some girls just want to have fun. He going down this rabbit hole of how he, dates certain women. So there's a cute scene where they're shopping and Sydney is looking for something to put on her mantelpiece. And the clerk mistakes her and Dre for a married couple. Like the way they were talking to each other, the way they were bickering, it appeared as if they were together. Everything is showing us and pointing to this thing that Dre and Sydney are soulmates in a way where they are supposed to be with each other or linked to each other in a romantic way. However, both of them are just stubborn as hell and fighting it the whole time. So I said, you know what? Y'all getting on my nerves, but I'm gonna ride this out. So Dre is trying to sign an artist. and he wants Sydney to go to the club with him. And she was like, baby, we not in college. I got work in the morning. So he was like, come on, Sid. So he begged. And of course, she obliged. Because I'm like, yeah, you may have work in the morning, but you do enjoy spending time with him. So you're going to go. And what happened? She went. Now, let me just tell y'all. Now, this artist that Dre is trying to sign, his name is Chris, who is portrayed by the handsome Mos Def. Now, let me tell y'all, Taye Diggs looked hella fine in this movie. Boris Kodjoe, who played Kelby, looked hella fine in this movie. But y'all know who I had the biggest crush on? That damn Mos Def. Oh, I was here for him. I was here for him throughout this entire film. And I've known Mos Def. I knew of his music. And I knew what he looked like. Now, I think the year before this movie came out, or maybe a year or two before this movie came out, Carmen, the hip hopper starring Beyonce, came out on MTV, I think it was. And Mos Def played a shady police officer, but I didn't care because I thought he was so. I'm like, when did he get this fine? Has Mos Def always been this cute? I don't know, but it was something about seeing him in Carmen that set up the tone for me, and I've just had the biggest crush on him since then. So when I saw him in Brown Sugar, I'm like, oh, bump Taye Diggs, bump Boris Kodjoe. I'm here for Mos Def. Okay, so Chris is the artist that Dre wants to sign. He's an authentic hip hop artist, true hip hop, real hip hop, a storyteller, not a gimmick. He's that. Unfortunately, he knows about Dre. He knows that Dre works for Millennium Records, and he's not here for it. He doesn't want to deal with him in any capacity. So in the midst of Dre trying to get Chris's attention or approval or trying to, soften him to sign with Millennium, we see this black man and this white man come in looking like straight fools. And I'm like, who the hell are these people? So it's funny because this is exactly what happens in hip hop, okay? Or rap culture. We meet Ren and Ten, the hip hop Dalmatians. They can't spell, they can't rap, they just can't, okay? They are a gimmick. They are funny is what they are. They are hilarious. However, they are stupid. They are what record labels use to promote filth and garbage. And like I said, this movie came out in 2002, and we are in the year 2023, and we're still seeing these gimmicky acts. They may not wear the fur coats with the black and white stripes, but they may be, they fashion these people to come in to promote a certain agenda. And when I say agenda, I mean you water down the music so bad, and the people are not even listening to the words anymore. It's just about the beat. You got a good beat, you can really say anything that you want. But me being a wordsmith, and I listen to the lyrics of any type of song, because I love all kind of music, I am instantly turned off when it's trash. And when I say trash, meaning you're not saying anything, you're just putting a bunch of words together, and there is no story being told. But anyway, Dre finds out that the Hip Hop Dalmatians are his new group. They signed to Millennium the day before. Dre had nothing to do with it. He could not believe it. So he goes to work the next day, and yes, his boss tell him, I had to sign them. I ain't never seen nothing like that in my life. They gonna make us a lot of money. Well, they gonna make me a lot of money. Dre is being facetious when he says that they can remake The Girl Is Mine with Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson. Like, they can remake that song. And dude was like, oh yeah, that's why you a genius. Oh, we gonna call it That Hoe Is Mine. And Dre was like, are you serious? Like, dude, I was joking. He was like, no, we gonna do that. But you go ahead and marry that little fine wife of yours. Go on your vacation. When you come back, you gonna work on Ren and Ten's album. And Dre is like, what the hell? And I felt Dre in that moment, because it's like, Dre is from New York. Dre is from that culture of, watching these hip hop artists break at the park, break dancing, the graffiti, all of that. And he's watching this stuff, and he can't take it. So what does he do? He goes to talk to Sydney, the person who understands him. And he's just in his feelings. He's talking about, how the business is and the deals that are being made and how 30% of them, are not good. And Sydney gave him a look like 30%. He was like, all right, 50. But you see what I'm saying? Like, everything is just about deals, and they're crooked and they're not in service of the artist. And, Sydney was like, come here. So she gives him a hug. Now, this is the night before his wedding. She gives him a hug and she was like, everything gonna be all right. And she started kissing him like on the cheek and then on the other cheek. I said, wait. Sydney, one kiss was enough, sis. What you doing? I said, now see, Sydney, I have to blame you in the sense of, how you feel. You know that your best friend is about to marry someone who you don't approve of and who he shouldn't marry in the first place. And you have feelings for him. And these feelings are starting to render their head in this vulnerable moment with you two. And there's kind of like a pause, and then they start kissing each other. And they going in. And the moment he untied her top, where she literally didn't have no bra on, that's when everything paused. And she was like, yeah, you better go. Like, you better go before we get to busy, my dude. You know what I'm saying? That's the vibe I got. That if Dre didn't get the hell out of Dodge, Dre was going to get some Hot Pocket that night. So she was like, wait. So for me, Dre put his stuff down like it was a possibility that he was going to get some. And she was like, are you still like you still going to marry Reese tomorrow? And he was like, yeah, I love her and I want to marry her. What? No, you don't. You don't want to marry Reese. You're not really married. You're not really ready to marry anybody, but you know where your heart is. And this is why I said I want to punch him and Sydney in their throat, because it's one thing when you don't want to admit how you feel about somebody. It's one thing when you're not ready to acknowledge that, but it is another thing when you bring innocent people into your dysfunction. And that's what Sydney and Dre did. They brought two innocent people into their dysfunction because they were not ready to deal with themselves in a real way. And this is real life. This stuff happens all the time. You feel a way about somebody. You have feelings, but maybe I shouldn't have feelings for this person. I don't know how this is going to work out. So you get with somebody else to occupy your time and take resident in their heart and in their emotions. And I have an issue with people that do that. No, I don't believe we're not perfect, and we do make decisions based on what we feel may be best for us or what we want at that time. I am just a huge proponent on protecting other people's peace and their well-being as well, especially when it's something else out there that you desire and that person is not giving you. And not only that, it's not them. So anyway, this next scene is one of my favorite scenes too. When they at this wedding, baby, Francine had me rolling because she figures out that something happened between Sydney and Dre the day before. How they were looking at each other, avoiding eye contact, all of that. Francine was like, wait a minute, like, she about to marry your man. Like, you need to say something. When the pastor asks, does anybody have anything to say or reason why these two people shouldn't be, whatever, I don't even know what the words are, together in holy matrimony, speak now, forever hold your peace. Francine was like, say something. That's your man up there.
Oh, forever hold him.
Say something. And I'm like, look at these idiots. I understand Sydney being the best friend. That takes some balls to sit in somebody's wedding when you almost had sex with their proposed spouse the night before, and you in love with them, and they in love with you, and you watch them marry somebody else. I'm not built like that, y'all. I don't have it in me. Now, I think I'm a very strong person, very strong-willed individual, but that I don't think I could do. Oh, Jesus. It would be a mess. More power to Sydney, baby, because I don't think I could have done that. So we find out that Kelby, who is this famous basketball player, who is played by the beautiful, tall, and talented Boris Kodjoe. So he has a little crush on Sydney, and he wants to do an interview, but he wants her to be the person that interviews him because they had someone else to do it, but he only wanted her. So they go to this little nice lounge or whatever. And it is the first time that Sydney sees Dre and Reese since the wedding. And, you know, Dre was like, he didn't even recognize Sydney because she looked so gorgeous. Like, she looked so beautiful. And I'm like, my dude, I'm going to need you to calm down because you're doing this in front of your new wife. You know, I understand you giving a compliment, but you're going a little too overboard. I said, Reese, where you at, sis? I got more about that question about Reese because I'm like, where the hell are you? Are you just so delusional by penis that you can't recognize what the hell is happening in front of your face, ma'am? You don't see it? You don't see the fireworks between Dre and Sydney? You don't see these uncomfortable stares between Dre and Sydney? Where is your discernment? Where is it? It obviously just don't exist. So I got to give it to Kelby because Kelby picked up on it. And he was like, you know, that's your ex? And she was like, nah, Dre, that's my boy. Like, we grew up together. And he was like, yeah, y'all grew up together. So he picked it up from the very beginning. But just like with Reese, you just got so lost in the sauce of Sydney's Hot Pocket that you recognize it for what it was in the beginning. And my whole thing is this. People say a lot of stuff, but people lie a lot. When you see body language, when you see certain actions, believe that. Because people can lie, nah, babe, it ain't like that with us. That's my best friend. We grew up together. We've always been close. And I can understand that because, like I said, I grew up with my best friend who was a guy and, you know, certain things like that. And you had to tell people like, no, that's my best friend. It's really not like that between us. And also understanding, just like when Dre got married, my best friend got married and he got married when we were in our early 20s. And the dynamic of our relationship had to change. And I remember one time we kind of had like a little falling out because it was, you know, when you do things as second nature, but now he's married, so we have to maneuver differently. And so one night we were talking and I didn't even realize how late it was. And I looked at the clock and it was almost midnight. And I was like, where are you? And he was like, oh, I'm downstairs. And I said, where's your wife? And he said, she's upstairs. And I said, does she know that you're talking to me? And he was like, no. I said, okay, well, we'll talk tomorrow. We'll finish this conversation later. And so he was like, Alicia, it's fine. I said, no, it's not fine. I said, because if I was her, I would be thinking, why is he downstairs on the phone? Why couldn't he be having this conversation laying next to me? And the last thing that I want is for her to feel threatened by me or to feel like I'm trying to do anything sleazy and slimy when it comes to you as my friend. I don't ever want her to feel that way. And he couldn't understand that. And he got mad and we didn't talk for like 3 months. He came around, you know what I'm saying? But it was like, I wanted to make clear boundaries on the fact that you are a married man now and your first priority should always be your wife and the security that she feels in your union. And even if our relationship has to suffer, I'm willing to deal with that because she's the most important person. And sometimes, I mean, it was very uncomfortable, but that's life. And you have to maneuver with whatever life, you know, not throws at you, but whatever life presents in that moment. So Sydney and Kelby are having a good time. And, you know, they're walking along the riverfront. And she tells him that his game ain't that good. Both on the court and off the court. Because she was like, you think you gonna get some, huh? And he was like, yeah, I mean, that's the plan. He was like, isn't that why men and women do this, like this tap dance back and forth? So he goes to her house and Dre calls her. And she tells Dre that Kelby is at her spot. And he's like, you gonna have sex with him? She was like, maybe, yeah. Tell me something. He ain't cook for you. How you know he cooked? Because he rented out an entire restaurant. And, you know, he cooked for her, supposedly had her favorite drink ready. And she was nervous, but she was also excited because it was a man who she was interested in, who was putting forth effort to show that he was interested in her. And so Dre was like, man, he ain't cook for you. He ain't do that. I cook for you. And she was like, Dre, a bologna sandwich ain't nothing. And I bust out laughing because I'm like, why do friends think, baby, making me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich ain't cooking for me? This dude cooked for me. What you mean? You get going to the little neighborhood store, buy me a bag of chips. I thank you, but that ain't no meal. But that's how some of these man friends are. You know what I'm saying? They think doing the bare minimum, they think they done changed your entire life. Wrong. So Kelby and Sydney end up having sex for the first time. So Dre is just fed up, okay? Dre goes to work. He cannot deal with the Rented 10, the hip hop Dalmatians. First of all, this scene was so hilarious. These idiots are in the booth remaking The Girl Is Mine by Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson. And they changed it to This Hoe Is Mine. When I tell y'all, I remember being in the theater and people just erupting with laughter because it was that funny. That scene was so funny. Dre was like, I done had enough. So Dre quits. He quits his job and he gets, all of a sudden he's in the cab. He doesn't know it's Chris's cab because Chris drove cabs for a living as he worked on his, you know what I'm saying, his music on the side. And he told Chris that he left Millennium. He quit his job because he want to make real music and he wasn't doing that at Millennium. So he goes to see Sydney and he tells Sydney his plans and what he wants to do. And she gives him a check to help him fulfill his dream. And that's a big thing too. When you are friends with somebody, you really know the intricate details of their desires. And sometimes that could be a bad thing. And sometimes that could be a very good thing. It becomes, I'm not going to say bad thing. It becomes a problematic thing when they are in a relationship, when they are a husband or when they are a wife and they go to you first. That is something that, like I said, when you're used to doing something second nature and somebody else is now in the place of number one, you have to be intentional to treat that person like they're number one. And I always say my motto is, if you tell me I'm number one in your life, if I'm number one in your life, never make me feel like I'm number two. Never make me feel that way. And Dre, even though Reese was his wife, he treated her as if she was number two. And that, to me, that was just the reality. He did not treat her like you come first. He treated her like you are second after Sydney, point blank, period. So when he quit his job, he didn't have that talk with his wife. He went to Sydney. When he talked about wanting to start his record label, he went to Sydney. Reese is getting this second hand. So she was like, I'll see what I could do, pulling some money, some funds. And he was like, nah, you ain't got to do that. Sydney already. And she was like, oh, you talked to Sydney? And he was like, babe, it ain't like that. She's my friend. This is why we got to be so careful when people talk about, oh, he's just a friend. She's just a friend. Because yes, they may carry that title, but emotionally, they are more than that. And I think that's the dangerous thing. When someone isn't honest with themselves, they are not going to be honest with you. And sometimes you have to be the person to say, hey, you've been telling me that this woman is your friend or this man is your friend. And it's clear to me that, yes, they may be a friend, but emotionally you carry them in a place where a friend doesn't belong. They're more than that to you. I need to know what's going on. Sometimes you have to be the one to initiate those conversations. And so that's where we were with it. So Reese and Sydney go to the same gym. And there has been this little cutie that has been, flirting with Reese, and she's been flirting back. And Sydney has been watching this. So we get to this scene. I always say this is my least favorite scene, only because it was like uncomfortable. Not that it was a bad scene, because I understood where Reese was coming from. She was mad, angry, and damn it, she had had enough. When I got to watch my man go to you, confide in you, cry on your shoulder, get advice from you, get financial help from you, I'm his wife. I'm the person he's supposed to be traveling through life with. I'm the person that's supposed to be his helpmeet. I'm her. And for the entire aspect of our marriage, you have been her. That's a hurtful place to be in. I know some people did not like Reese, and I'm not saying Reese was my favorite character, but what I am saying now, watching this as an adult, I understood her. I could sympathize with her. I could have compassion for her because she was the wife. Period. So they had to partner up. They were trying to find partners, but Sydney and Reese had to be each other partners. And during that time, they let some truths come out about how they felt about what was going on. You know, Sydney was telling her, you treat Dre's dreams as if it's a hobby. And it's not a hobby. It's his dream. And Reese was telling Sydney that he confides in you in a way that he doesn't confide in me. And the things that I'm asking him to share with me, you already know. So both of them were in a very interesting position. And Reese hadn't had enough. She just walked away. So fast forward, we go to this party that's being thrown at Sydney's house. Sydney and Dre are there. Reese is there. Kelby is there. Francine is there along with Chris. Now, Chris has a crush on Francine. Okay? Chris wants to ask her out, but he thinks because, he ain't in the gym. He a skinny dude. He probably ain't got props to pull a full figure woman like Francine. And Dre was like, man, yeah, just go talk to her. Now let me say this, Dre is twisted, okay? Dre is twisted as hell. He is drunk. And the party was for him getting Brown Sugar Records off the ground, signing Chris as his artist. They're working together as a team. And in this party, Dre raises a glass to do a toast. And he tells Sydney that he's thankful that she's back on the East Coast. And that she was, his words to her, you are the perfect verse over a tight beat. I remember in the theater, all you heard was, damn shit, woo! Baby, I will never forget that moment in that theater, because after hearing all of that, we couldn't do nothing but laugh. Because what do you say when somebody say something like that to your woman? You are the perfect verse over a tight beat? Excuse me? Reese was pissed off. Kelby gave the look like, damn. His facial expression expressed what everybody said in the theater. But even with that, Kelby is bold. Because Kelby was like, excuse me. He walked, I got this little pause. He tells Sydney how much he loves her. And he proposes. Now, as he is proposing on his knee, Dre is looking at Sydney like, you bet not say yes. Even though his wife right over there, you bet not say yes. But what does Sydney do? Sydney says yes. Reese is ecstatic. Reese is happy. Reese is overjoyed because she feels, well, damn it. Oh, that's a relief, because if she says yes to him, I get my husband back. In the words of Destiny Child, no, 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 no. It didn't go that way, ma'am. Dre is pissed because he feel like Sydney, you marrying Sasquatch, had the nerve to call Kelby, the professional basketball player, Sasquatch, because he's married. So he feels like Sydney is trying to be in competition with him. And she was like, oh, so because I can't marry you, you know what I'm saying? Like you coming at me crazy? Like you think you the only person that could get married or whatever? And they give each other this hug. Like, I said, see, this the mess y'all both need to get popped in y'all throat, because Sydney, why did you say yes? Then we get the voiceover of Sanaa Lathan, well, Sydney, saying I love you and being in love with somebody is like hip hop and rap. Rap is just the word. I said, now I'm going to give you props because that's deep as hell. However, ma'am, you need to be popped in your throat, because why did you accept this man's proposal if you just love him? And love is just a word. It really doesn't mean anything in comparison to being in love with someone as you are with Dre. Because even though Dre was acting jealous and selfish and all of that, at the end of the day, he was right. You were marrying Kelby. You were saying yes to Kelby because you could not be with him. So just like Reese was his second best, Kelby is your second best. And it's not right and it's not fair. And I didn't like neither one of them in this moment. I love them, but I didn't like them in this moment because you're dragging other people into your intentional dysfunction. Now, this is when things get a little murky, because Dre, Chris, and Sydney are at the studio. Now, remember I said earlier how Dre and Reese sometimes take each other's phone by accident because they have the same phone. And sometimes they pick up the wrong phone. And so this happens on this night and they get the alert about this date that Reese is supposed to go on. So Drake asks Chris, does he have his cab? Next thing we know, we see Reese at dinner with this little cutie and he's fine. So Sydney is like, Dre, please don't make a scene. Please don't do this. What does he do? He make the biggest ass scene. They sit down. He order pork chop and wine, champagne to celebrate his divorce. I said, baby. The dude was completely caught off guard because he did not know that Reese was married in any way, shape, or form. He was trying to apologize. Dre was like, dude, this ain't even your fault because she ain't wearing the ring that I bought her ass and then I'm still paying on. And Reese said, actually, I'm still paying on it. And Dre said, can you please not put my business on the street like that? No, sir. No. And in the beginning, I talked about the hypocrisy of this scene. Because how is it that you are trying to come at Reese for going out on a date when you literally was kissing your best friend the night before your wedding? And I said, sometimes I'm not going to categorize this as men, just people, when you don't want to take accountability and responsibility for your F-ups. So it's easy to point the finger at someone else. And this is not the first time that Dre does this, because he does it later on in the scene with him and Reese, which I think was completely unfair, but we'll get to that in a minute. So after Dre and Sydney leave the restaurant, they go back to her house. And she was like, I can't believe that you did that. And he was like, yeah. And so she was like, but how are you okay with this? And in my mind, I'm like, baby girl, are you having a case of amnesia as well? Do you not remember kissing him the night before his wedding? Do you not remember him untying your shirt where your breasts were exposed to him? Do you not remember that? What do you mean? How was he being okay? He didn't want to marry her in the first place, and you knew that. So long story short, Sydney and Dre have sex for the first time. An 8-minute excursion.
Just happened was the most amazing, most fulfilling, most exhilarating 5 minutes I've ever had in my life.
10 minutes.
7.
9.
Okay, 8, whatever. Point.
8 minutes. Oh, Father, that's such a disappointment. But I mean, I'm just saying, a lot could be done in 8 minutes if you do it right. I'm gonna leave it at that. I don't recommend 8 minutes, but tomato. So she had to go meet Kelby, and Dre was like, are you gonna tell him? Like, are you gonna still marry this cat after what we just had? And she was like, look, we spending too much time together. We're too close, and it's just confusing me right now. And I'm like, no, it's not confusing you. You know what you want. You just don't want to admit it, period. So now she's acting different around Kelby. He knows something up. So long story short, with all the foolishness and the madness, Dre and Reese meet at this little pool hall where he tells her, he wants a divorce. And she's like, I do also know there's a reason why you made me your wife. And I hope whatever that reason was is enough to keep me as your wife. And in that moment, I really felt for Reese, because I'm like, she really did love this little niglet over here. She really did love him. And Dre had all the audacity to look at her and tell her that, she was like, we made vows. And he said, you broke those vows. And he couldn't even look at her in her face, because he knew you broke your vows a long time ago. You broke your vows before there were ever even vows to break, because you were in love with Sydney. And you married this woman knowing full well your heart has always been someplace else. So don't give me that. And I can't stand when people do that. When she said, I know that you have something very special with Sydney. And it's like, yeah, he does. And he know he does. And he still wouldn't even admit it in that moment. He wouldn't say, yes, I do. He was just like, I don't think we have what it takes to make it last. I don't think we've ever had what it takes. So why did you propose to her then? Why did you ask to marry her? And that was the end of them. Then we get to Sydney and Kelby. Now, the difference between Kelby and Reese is that Kelby called her ass out and asked her how long was she and Dre going to keep up this game that they playing. And he just told her straight up, you don't want to get married. Sydney says, I don't know why your heart won't do what your mind tells it. I said, Nah, sis, you ain't getting off that easy. So you're trying, basically what you told this man is, I'm not in love with you, and I'm trying to will it to happen. I'm trying to wield my mind to make my heart feel something that it just don't feel. I said, that was a slap in the face. But I appreciated Kelby for saying what he said. Like, you playing with people's hearts because you don't want to be honest with yourself. Period. Then I'm going to skip the little part. It was in the hotel room. It don't really matter. Sydney still trying to keep her distance from Dre. Dre want to be with her. She acting stubborn and just dumb at this point. No, Dre, I just need some space. I said, girl, what? Anyway, so Dre finally got Hot 97 or Hot 95. I don't even know which one in it. If I said the wrong one, forgive me. I'm not from up north. Okay, I'm the South. I don't know what radio station it was. I think it was Hot 95. Whatever, the one with Angie Martinez. And basically, Dre finally got them to agree to play Chris's, new record or what have you. So they're just waiting for it to happen. And it was the irony is Sydney had an interview with Angie Martinez. So they're waiting and they're doing their interview and they talking about her book. And she was like, hip hop, I love you. I always have and I always will. And Chris looked at Dre, was like, you better go get him. So they go up to the radio station and he's on the phone and he's expressing himself and his heart and, asking her when she fell in love with hip hop. And she began to tell the story. He was like, no, when did you fall in love with hip hop? And she tells him, Dre, I've been in love with you from the first time I saw you. I said, what? We waited an hour and 30 minutes for you to tell him this, Sydney Shaw? Really? Then he walks in with Chris and he was like, I love you. You're my heir. And he was like, I don't want to be your friend no more. And he pulled out the paper and was like, will you go out with me with the yes, no, or maybe box? Which was so cute. I ain't even going to front. That scene was so cute. And she shook her head yes. And he dropped his phone in the paper, walked into the booth and was hugging her. They kissing. And Chris was talking to Francine, and she just was like, Chris, you want to go out with me sometime? And he was like, yeah, let's do that. I'm a goer. So Andrew Martinez was like, we making all kind of love connections up in here, and it was just really cute. Now I liked the movie. I really enjoyed the movie. Brown Sugar is probably like my first. It's like in my top 25. It's not like a top 5 for me. I enjoyed the movie. I really did. And I really do think it's a staple in the Black community when you talk about love and you talk about hip hop. And I think one of the things that I enjoyed about it is the sayings, the voiceovers that we heard Sydney talk about throughout the film. Hip hop versus rap, loving someone versus being in love with someone. And even though I do understand those dynamics, I am a true proponent in being honest. Because there's drama in honesty too. You know what I'm saying? When you got to admit stuff to yourself before you admit it to somebody else. And I just felt bad for Kelby. And I felt bad for Reese because they just caught these strays that were not meant for them. But damn it, they were just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Fell in love with the wrong people. And that's what they got. But that last scene of Brown Sugar with the yes, no, or maybe, I thought it was so cute because since they met each other as children. And that's just something that kids do when you like somebody. Like, will you be my girlfriend? Yes, no, or maybe. Will you be my boyfriend? Yes, no, or maybe. And I just thought it was incredibly cute and innocent. And I think sometimes that is a detrimental thing when you get feelings in your adolescence and people, oh, that's just puppy love. Or, it ain't, girl, you don't know what it feel. And I'm like, I'm going to tell you what. When I was 15 years old, and the guy who was like my boyfriend at the time, I was in love with him. Like, there was no puppy love. Oh, girl, she young, girl. No. That was some real deal feelings. And as a grown woman now, I understand how strong those feelings were as a 15-year-old. Those feelings are not, of naught. And I think, even being in that, if you have younger children, and you allow them to have those type of relationships, like, continue to talk to them because those feelings are real. And because, like I said, they met each other so young and those feelings were so strong at such a young age, it is hard to let go of that. because it's so real in that moment. And I think that was the beauty of Dre and Sydney's relationship, because they were able to go through the different ups and downs of life. They saw the ups and downs of hip hop. They saw the different sub cultures of hip hop arise as it grew older, as it matured, as it went through adolescence. And I just thought it was the perfect harmony to their love story. So it was just, you know what I'm saying, the movie is good. I really enjoyed watching it again, even though I've seen this movie 100 times. It was just beautiful. Shout out to Mos Def, who I still got a little crush on. But I want to thank you guys for listening to these Back Down Memory Lane movies. And next week it will be Double Platinum, starring Diana Ross and the magnificent, incomparable Brandy Norwood. Thank you guys for listening. Until next time, I will holler at y'all later, and y'all be safe out there. One.